For the last 40 years, the global economy ran on a fairly simple premise that trade between the United States and China was good for everybody. Today, that relationship looks a lot more like an economic Cold War. For decades, it was a highly lucrative arrangement for American interests. The U.S. secured cheap consumer goods and sky-high corporate profits, all while outsourcing the messy reality of industrialization. We avoided the environmental damage of mining and processing raw materials because China did it for us. That arrangement is over. In just the past few years, the U.S. has slapped 100% tariffs on imported Chinese drones, cut off access to top-tier AI chips, and rolled out a wave of aggressive export controls targeting vast global supply chains. The governing logic is no longer about economic efficiency or global integration. Both nations have shifted to a strictly defensive posture, prioritizing national security and political leverage over open markets. From Washington's perspective, the problem is straightforward. The United States currently relies on its primary geopolitical rival to supply the materials needed for its military hardware and the components critical to next-generation technologies. The official response is a strategy known as de-risking. The goal is to pull up the drawbridge, restrict trade, and protect American dominance by cutting off foreign influence in critical sectors. Instead of starving China's tech sector, these defensive policies are triggering an unintended technological transformation. The aggressive push to de-risk from China may actually be the catalyst for Chinese technological independence. Take the software front. Recently, the U.S. government placed strict export controls on highly advanced closed AI models like Anthropic's Fable, specifically to keep those capabilities out of the hands of foreign adversaries. Within days, Chinese AI labs responded by releasing their own highly capable models for free on the internet. These are known as open weights models, meaning the core mathematical probabilities of the AI are available for anyone to download and run themselves. This flowchart illustrates a massive advantage for global corporations. Because the model is open, a company can run the AI locally on its own internal servers. Their highly proprietary data never leaves their building, whereas using a closed American model requires sending that sensitive data out to a centralized cloud. This map shows the result. Developers and businesses across the globe are eagerly adopting these Chinese systems. This wide-scale adoption grants China enormous technological soft power, quietly embedding their software architecture into the global digital economy. By trying to hoard software superiority, the U.S. effectively locked its own top-tier technology in a vault, inadvertently creating a massive global market for Chinese alternatives. The situation is remarkably similar on the hardware front. To protect domestic manufacturers from a flood of cheap foreign goods, the U.S. has leaned heavily on broad tariffs. But tariffs address a reality that no longer exists. China has spent the last decade rapidly moving up the value chain. They have graduated from extracting raw dirt to processing highly complex rare earth magnets, and they now completely dominate electric vehicle battery technology. At the same time, the Chinese economy is suffering from involution, a brutal state of domestic overcapacity. With internal demand slowing down, Chinese factories are fiercely competing against each other, churning out high-end products at breakneck speeds just to survive. This chart shows the sheer scale of the imbalance. Chinese automotive factories currently possess the capacity to produce 55 million cars annually, a volume that dwarfs actual global demand. U.S. tariffs are no longer defending American workers against a low-cost, low-skill factory. They are attempting to shield the U.S. from a desperate, highly efficient innovation superpower that is exporting its brutal domestic survival fight to the rest of the world. You might expect American businesses operating inside China to be packing up and leaving, yet the vast majority are staying exactly where they are. Their reasoning has flipped. They are no longer there to access a cheap labor pool. They are staying because the Chinese local market has become an essential testing ground to study and match cutting-edge innovation. This chart shows the collateral damage of U.S. policy. When American companies are hit with U.S. export controls, over 60% report losing their sales permanently to Chinese competitors. Once a buyer is forced to switch to a Chinese supplier, they rarely come back. Business leaders increasingly believe that failing to compete with agile Chinese firms inside China today means forfeiting their ability to compete with them everywhere else tomorrow. There is a clear distinction between military and commercial decoupling. Purging Chinese materials from U.S. defense supply chains by 2030 is a focused, logical, and largely achievable objective. But severing the entire commercial ecosystem is staggeringly expensive and perversely incentivizes China to upgrade its own tech stack faster. The financial trade-offs are steep. Every $100 billion the United States spends trying to recreate legacy mineral processing at home is capital diverted away from funding next-generation industries like quantum computing, biotechnology, and essential grid infrastructure. In our rush to build an impenetrable economic fortress, we have to ask whether we are locking our adversaries out or locking ourselves in.